I think this is the important part of the conversation, right? We've outlined, I hope in good detail, what disruptive technologies are and how much they change things, but how can people listening to this apply this in their life or their business? In today's episode, we explore the transformative impact of disruptive technology, which is fundamentally reshaping industries and creating new market landscapes. We'll delve into how these innovations challenge and often overturn established business norms, offering new opportunities and changing the way we live and work.
The Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast is your ultimate launchpad for igniting ideas and skyrocketing your entrepreneurial dreams. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden.
Well, hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. What about you, Professor Palin?
Busy, busy, busy. I'm doing some work on my office to have it all situated for our podcast recordings.
You never stop iterating this podcast setup. I really love it. I feel like I'm the one lagging behind on having to catch you with equipment and setup and making sure you're able to look straight. It's really fantastic.
Ryan, today I wanted to talk about a concept that I always find fascinating, is disruptive technology. You see massive iterations as a result of disruptive technology, which is the essence. It's an innovation that significantly alters the way a business, industry, or a market operates. Internet was a disruptive technology going back 20, 30 years. Smartphones, short in time. Today you're seeing blockchain is a disruptive technology. And one we talk about all the time, AI is a disruptive technology.
As with many disruptive technologies, we're just at the tip of the iceberg on what AI is going to do and how much of the way we operate is going to be disrupted by it.
Yeah, there's so many applications to AI, but a lot of people think disruptive technology is just computer technology when they think of technology. But when you go back, disruptive technology has been with us forever. For example, the Gutenberg press was a disruptive technology in its day.
Oh, without a doubt. I knew you were going to say that example. It's a really good one that changed the way we produced materials and information got disseminated across the world.
Exactly. And massively, the information was disseminated across volumes of people, where previously it was really only the wealthy that had access to any type of literature, any type of publication. But you can even go back to the origins of man. The wheel was a disruptive technology.
Now you're really showing your age. Trying to say you were around when the wheel was done?
I didn't sweep up with the person that was chiseling that rock. Disruptive technology is not a new thing. It's something that goes back to the beginning of time. There's always major innovations when you think it's significantly shifting a business, an industry, or how a market operates.
That's absolutely right. I feel like we're in a time in which there are so many disruptive technologies happening all the way around us.
Absolutely. When you're looking at disruptive technologies that are coming into the future, AI is part of it, but I think the next step will be the merging of tech fields using AI. For example, biotech and nanotechnology is going to disrupt massively.
And broadening that a little bit, the Internet of Things, right? We're all familiar with the Internet, this place we can go on a computer or a smartphone to get access to, but so many home devices in particular are being added to this concept of the Internet of Things. An easy example of that is there are a lot of ovens now are smart ovens. So you can turn it on remotely, it'll heat up and get ready for you. But that adaptation paired with AI is going to disrupt our home situation.
That's impacting what's referred to as smart manufacturing with the Internet of Things. Also, renewable energy technology is another disruptive technology that's right on the forefront.
There's massive investments in it right now, and we're starting to see what feels like a pivot point of renewable energy being able to be produced at true scale.
So when I look at disruptive technologies, I think of some key characteristics. One is the market transformation. So is it creating an entirely new market? Some of the examples that we've given will be creating entirely new markets. Quantum computing is another one.
Yeah, quantum computing. It's one I'm following pretty closely because that will disrupt everything we know about computers in general. There's different projections of what that quantum computing will do, but a lot of people think it will be roughly 100 times as fast. anything that's smart related, meaning has access to the internet, will be 100 times more efficient.
Another characteristic that we see with disruptive technologies is accessibility. Does it make a product or services more accessible to the mass market? In the example we gave at the beginning, the Gutenberg Press was a perfect example of the accessibility, as we mentioned.
Unless you were really wealthy or part of the religious organizations, you didn't have literature.
Also, with disruptive technology, it's referred to, a characteristic is referred to as the innovation trigger. Is it a catalyst for further innovation, for further disruption? And again, AI being an example of that, quantum computing being an example of that, is triggering more and more innovation.
Right. And that's the rapid speeding of that cycle. One small trigger has a bunch of things, whether it's technology as we think about it, or just innovation that's changing industries or confined in that one industry.
Now, the last characteristic that I see when I'm looking at disruptive technology is it creating a massive value shift? Is it a shift in the value proposition of an existing business or existing market? And an example of that to me is Uber. So there was a tremendous shift in the value proposition. They disrupted the taxi industry, moved more towards ride sharing, and the value proposition changed dramatically.
Right. Value proposition in two ways. Now people could earn an income through their car and exchanging their car and their time. So you didn't have to be a taxi driver in a medallion qualified taxi. You could be an individual picking up spare hours or shifting your career entirely. Also, I can't speak globally about this, but it seems like it brought the cost of a taxi ride dramatically down.
And the ease of getting the ride sharing, because previously there were times where trying to get a taxi, I can remember distinctly in San Francisco, it was hell to flag down a taxi. Whereas I believe that's where Uber was originated. And I could understand why they saw that pain point immediately in the city. Now it's fairly simple with Lyft and Uber. Virtually anywhere, there's always exceptions, times of days, you can usually get a ride for whatever necessities that you have.
And at your current location. So you didn't even have to go to a main street or a taxi depot or a taxi line. Just wherever you're currently standing is where they come.
Now, another application of disruptive technology was streaming services, and one we talked about quite a bit as an example is Netflix and how they utilize that disruptive technology to really revolutionize entertainment.
Absolutely. And now all the major streaming networks are still trying to play catch up.
Also, with disruptive technologies, you can have industry transformations. An example of that would be the retail industry. E-commerce platforms, and the prime example there is Amazon, and how that's revolutionized the retail industry via e-commerce, and it starts with internet applications and moves forward. Now, another industry that's dramatically been impacted for quite a few years and quite a few iterations is telecommunication. I can remember when internet was first coming about and you had the dial-up and those god-awful screeching sounds when you were hooking up. It was always going down. Well, the problem there was they were trying to run the internet on telephone wires, which was basically designed for voice, but any type of bandwidth, even a simple picture, and it was crashing that. And then you start moving into fiber optics, and now you're moving towards like with Elon Musk doing Skylink. The innovations with telecommunications, smartphones, mobile data is absolutely amazing.
And the access points to that, right? Instead of getting high speed, we went from slow speed internet at some places to high speed internet at some places, high speed internet at most places. Now we have, as you said, there are a couple applications, Elon Musk being one of them, where you can get okay quality internet virtually anywhere on the globe now.
It's interesting, the applications to that, because under North Carolina, we had a tremendous storm in the Asheville area. Those people, their outages were just amazing what they would had to deal with for lack of power, water, sanitation, everything, any access. And Skylink was brought in and people could communicate that we're in a mountain just to let people know they were there. We're able to communicate with that. It's truly amazing what you can do. And the growth of telecommunications is so accessible. And there's so many businesses that can drive from understanding the growth of disruptive technology And it's important to understand if you're sitting there saying, well, how do I apply this to myself? You want to keep up with the changes because there will always be disruptive technologies. And when you're looking at them, say, how can I apply them in whatever niche that I'm addressing, what pain points I'm seeing, and can I get ahead of the curve by being a first mover associated with the disruptive technology?
Yeah. And I think this is the important part of the conversation, right? We've outlined, I hope in good detail, what disruptive technologies are and how much they change things, but how can people listening to this apply this in their life or their business? And it's exactly what you said. By just being up to date, you can have first mover advantage, or at least not get left behind when the wave of industry changes.
Ryan, before we continue, I'd like to address an important issue for the Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast. Creating a quality podcast with valuable content is very time-consuming and has substantial costs to create and produce. To cover these costs, many podcasts use a paid subscription model. Others use a sponsorship model. We prefer not to implement either of these options. I would like to address a concept called value for value podcasting.
While we enjoy creating value for our listeners, providing insights that enhance their entrepreneurial success, it would mean the world to us if our audience would also give some value back to us to support our efforts.
One might wonder, how can you support our show? Well, it's simple. Sharing our podcast with friends, colleagues, or on your social media is a fantastic way to give back.
Also, we love receiving your feedback, comments, or even just a cheerful email.
Or consider making a monetary contribution through platforms such as Venmo or Substack.
You can also support us by setting up a bill payment through your bank. This method allows you to send a contribution directly to our physical address.
Every bit of support counts, whether it's tuning in, sharing our episodes, or contributing financially. Each contribution helps us cover production costs and improve the podcast.
Check out our website at prospirit.com, where you can find more details on how to support us. Every contribution, no matter the size, makes a massive difference. Decide for yourself, what is the value of this episode to you? Let's do this together. We provide value and you return value. Value for value podcasting.
Thank you for being a part of Let's Get Entrepreneurial. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
You're big into measuring analytics with businesses, but just the vast amounts of data applied with finance. And again, you're going to see quantum computers and AI applied to that is going to accelerate that and create still more and more opportunities.
AI is just on the forefront of every conversation right now. And there's a lot of people that are hesitant to get involved in it because it's a huge industry with so many different AI applications pushing their sort of marketing at you. And that can be overwhelming. But there are really simple tools available that virtually anyone that's capable of doing a Google search is qualified to interact with that can make your life easier and more productive.
Virtually any industry, you can see applications to that. In my field of academia, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, they're using chat boxes for student support. AI can scrape your syllabus, and instead of the student sending an email to the professor asking questions, they just ask the chat box, and through AI, it gives the answer immediately to the students, especially when they're awake at 11 p.m. and I'm asleep. When you think in terms of responding, just those type of chat box, very easy to apply to your business. We've done podcasts about customer focus, customer service. Those are applications you can just implement with your business immediately. It's important, though, if someone's looking at how can I apply disruptive technologies or start a business with disruptive technology, my advice is you have to build your operations with flexibility. It's part of your culture versus having a staid, not invented here type of mentality where, in my opinion, you'll fall behind if you're thinking in those terms.
I think that there are very little industries that you can afford to think about in those terms. Even industries that haven't changed for decades, in some part, be disrupted by the Internet of Things and AI applications.
Also, with your culture, you want to have a culture of continuous learning and skill development, because that allows the absorption of that flexibility so that you always have your head up. You're always looking at what the future brings versus trying to run your business looking in the rearview mirror.
Especially through my consultancy, I deal with the people that are, on the whole, pretty tech savvy. And what I find is they are willing to learn and go out and explore these tools but they get very defensive if someone brings a tool or an expression of a tool that they're not using to them that they haven't found themselves. And it's this funny dichotomy of they're willing to embrace it, but only if they're the ones discovering it. So you're talking about culture. You have to be open to anyone and everyone bringing forwards a new tool or a new application of a tool you're currently using, not just the things that you can go and put your hands on.
The not invented here syndrome is really a death knell for a business.
And you see it a lot, especially with, I'll put quotations around this, innovative people.
I can also imagine that there are a number of people listening saying, but I don't understand technology. I'm not good with technology, etc. But that doesn't mean you're isolated, because you can form strategic partnership with tech firms. That is their expertise. So you don't have to be all knowing of all things, which is impossible.
Or consultants, I'll throw in there.
Definitely. The application towards that makes your life much easier, and you can not fall behind, and you can be a leader of the pack in whatever field you're competing with if you're open to those strategic partnerships.
There's no doubt about that. When we talked about this podcast, that's what I wanted to convey is this is happening whether we're on board with it or not. It's your willingness to participate in that change and be a part of the disruptive technology. Very few people are successful being the ones that are trying to pump the brakes.
The laggards will struggle.
Right.
There are challenges associated with absorbing the disruptive technologies. People are concerned with job displacement.
You hear that all the time, especially in relation to AI.
There will be job displacements. Again, I go back to the Gutenberg press. Mainly what was published in those days were Bibles that were handwritten by monks. And they had a good deal. They were sitting in a chalet on a mountain, looking at a beautiful view, drinking wine, using calligraphy, making Bibles. Well, their job was displaced. I was talking earlier with your cultures, you want to have not just continuous learning, but you want to have skill development. So you're continually training the people within your firm to advance and to develop skills so that they are not displaced in their jobs.
That's a big one. The workforce, especially if you're in the position of hiring people, is going to change. We've talked about the difficulties of hiring people and how much effort that takes. You want to make sure that the people you're hiring are adaptable and can shift into the new role as it's inevitably going to change in their tenure.
Another challenge that I would encourage people to make sure they have their hands on is privacy and security concerns. I immediately think of the Internet of Things. Most people aren't aware that in their home, when they have, say, a smart refrigerator, that's an entry point for someone to hack into their system. The privacy and security, you have it on your computer fairly well with whatever type of application you're using. But no one's putting those type of security features that I know of at this moment on your refrigerator.
Right now, the security risks are fairly low, but you are correct that does create a vulnerability.
Yeah, you can put a VPN on your whole system in your home, for example.
Right.
Also, and this is one I think of AI, is regulations and controls. Because while there's so many positive applications to AI, and you and I are both very interested in that, there's a dark side of AI. There's some bad things that can happen. We were talking about some examples of that before we started recording. What are the regulations and controls to prohibit some nasty things that can happen?
Yeah, if you're interested in this, Google Chaos Bot, and a lot of stuff will come up. We're so new as this being an emerging industry that right now, I'm not really even sure there are regulations to any degree, or at least any meaningful degree. So there has to be some change there.
Well, those are my thoughts on disruptive technologies. Any final closing thoughts before we wrap up?
I'll just reiterate, it's happening whether you are choosing to be a part of it or not. There are immense opportunities that come along with it, and you can either hitch your boat to the tide or you can struggle to keep up.
Basically, the future is shaped by those companies that are prepared to embrace change and innovate.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, let's get entrepreneurial.
Let's get entrepreneurial.
We extend our gratitude for your presence and attention. Check out profspirit.com to discover resources and courses designed specifically for innovators like you. Stay on the cutting edge by following us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and other platforms as it is released. Until then, keep the entrepreneurial flame burning.